Hi, I just want to say a few things before this interview starts. The point of my channel is to destigmatize disorders and humanize people who have them. I'm sure it's well known that narcissistic personality disorder is one of the most stigmatized mental conditions out there. It's my job as the interviewer to relate with that person I'm speaking with as much as possible, using my own personal life and examples, if need be, to humanize the other's experience. With that being said, as I go through the symptom criteria with Jacob, I try my best to make them relatable, but I don't want anyone watching this diagnosing themselves or others, not your boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, mother, father, friend. There are multiple factors that come into play when someone is diagnosed with a personality disorder, so please be aware of that. Also, we use acronyms a lot like BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, which is not to be confused with bipolar disorder. We and ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder, aka a sociopath, but it is not to be confused with ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. BPD and ASPD are both personality disorders in the same cluster or group as NPD and share similar traits amongst each other. Also, this is a place for positivity and growth and mutual understanding. So if anyone leaves any negative comments, I will delete them. Last but not least, and Jacob agrees with me on this, if you are watching this and going through any abusive situation yourself, whether it's physically, verbally, emotionally, sexually, then I feel the need to tell you it doesn't matter what diagnosis someone has or what acronym a person has attached to them, abuse is still abuse. And you need to do what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation ASAP. Now, with that being said, I want to say, Jake, I appreciate you getting on my channel, and let the interview begin. Okay, so we're recording. There we go. All right, so guys, my name is David. I'm basically doing a series on my channel where I interview people with different disorders. I try to humanize them, humanize the people afflicted with them, and destigmatize them as well. So the best way to watch this, especially probably this interview, is from a non-judgmental, unbiased point of view. I'm trying to put myself in someone else's I'm trying to put myself in someone else's shoes, and I hope you can do the same. So the whole point of this is to empathize with someone, not sympathize, but just empathize with somebody. So there's a clear distinction there. Anyway, with that being said, my guy, introduce yourself.
So how's it going, everybody? I'm the Nameless Narcissist, but you can call me Jacob, ironically. I have a YouTube channel regarding living with narcissistic personality disorder and my experiences with it. I also interview experts sometimes, but mainly just me explaining how my head works and trying to destigmatize the disorder and give a more accurate view on it. Because I can acknowledge that we hurt people, but we aren't some evil mustache twirling villains that just want to hurt everyone around us. And a lot of people aren't aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. I like people. Narcissists aren't exactly people that are just sitting in a dark laboratory coming up with ways to, destroy the world and all the people that surround them and all
I have
that.
my cat on my lap that I'm just petting all.
Yeah, like what's that? Austin Powers, like Dr. Evil, just sitting there, not to say that there isn't obviously because like my whole point of my channel is to destigmatize narcissism. Or not narcissism, just general disorders in general. But for this episode, it would be to destigmatize it. And I think you're the best person to talk to. I think when I first hit you up, it was like 3 months ago, just about, when I decided to start this channel. It took me a while to start it, but I did it. And I like the way you express yourself, because you're not only are you extremely self-aware, which is not a common trait when it comes to narcissism in general, or narcissistic personality disorder.
I would say personality disorders in general.
Yeah. And personality disorders in general, it's not common to be self-aware of it at all. But not only are you self-aware, you explain yourself very intricately. Like, you're very intricate with the way you explain your experience with it, and that's what gravitated me towards you, is your ability to explain it and not make it so, like we were just talking about off camera, like, not people, every time they describe narcissism, it's always like we were just saying, they put some type of mythology on it, like it's evil human or evil creature that was sent from hell to destroy everyone around them. And meanwhile, lots of times, majority of the time, I would say these are people that were raised with some type of trauma or some type of, let's say, I mean, there's genetic and there's there's nature versus nurture and all that. You can argue. I would say there's a genetic disposition to it, but the I think the nurturing aspect has the most to do with it.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't
for sure.
I don't
I
think
don't think
anybody,
narcissism can exist without trauma, honestly.
yeah.
And I think that's an important, like, because I hate talking about my childhood, but I think it's important to bring up a lot of times to humanize narcissism.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the way that I articulate my experiences is attractive to people, because it's like, I'm just a dude. I'm explaining how I think. It's not like super convoluted with psychoanalytic terminology.
Hmm.
And it's like people can relate when they actually hear somebody who's a human speaking English talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, so when were you diagnosed? Or
Uh,
when and
Back
why were
in
you diagnosed? What were you going through then that
my
made you,
stored stuff.
yeah, that made you get to where you are today?
So this is one of the most shameful things about my narcissism, honestly, is so I was in a relationship with this girl who was like really good for me. I really liked her, but I ended up cheating on her.
Mhm.
I cheated on her with this woman who I had been on and off with for a long time, and I went into therapy. When I left that one girl, I went into therapy to impress the new girl. Right, be like, look how I'm working on myself. I'm so healthy.
Mhm.
She broke up with me right after I started therapy, so like it was kind of a waste there. But
Didn't
I
really
ended up
work.
staying. Yeah, it didn't work. But I ended up staying in because I was just kind of like, well, I'm already here, and hell, why did I do that? Why did I sabotage a relationship that was really good for me to go cheat with somebody that was about to break up with me in like 2 seconds?
Hmm.
And then, and I was also starting to reflect on my childhood and stuff. And it took me 2 years to start being honest. But I eventually had this after 2 years. I was like complaining about one of my friends or something. My therapist was probably like asleep. And then I just go on this, I just like slip up. I remember like so vividly. I'm just like, they don't fucking understand me. Like they're assholes, whatever. I sit back and I just like chuckle to myself. And I say, well, it makes sense though, doesn't it? And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I mean, they're all so fucking stupid. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, I mean, look at them and look at me. Like I am objectively better than all of them.
Hmm.
And she was like, and these are your friends? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, for the most part. You're like, she was just shocked I was talking about my friends like this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And after that, that was probably in 2000, probably 2001, that I was officially diagnosed. It was very, very shortly after that little episode that I had.
Okay. Okay. So okay, so you said 2001, so it's been a while now.
Oh God, yeah, it's been about 2 years since it was first brought up, I want to say. Yeah.
Oh, 2021.
Yeah, 21. What is wrong with me?
Oh
2001.
no, yeah, yeah, no.
I'm 23 years old.
Oh no, you were diagnosed at 2 years old. That would be
Yeah.
woo.
Self-fulfilling prophecy right there.
Yeah, that would be that would be the illest baby known to man.
Yeah, honestly. I'm just like
I'm better
imagine
than
like a
you, like
baby, yeah, a baby
bro.
just like standing there like this, like flicking people off.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay, so 2 years, 23. Okay, so
Yeah.
so what was it like? What was it like coming to terms with it? I mean, I'm assuming it must have been hard, and it probably was a process, right? It wasn't just like, oh yeah, you know what, that makes sense. You're right. And you just walked out of therapy. You know, you
I
just walked
mean,
out of
no,
therapy like,
honestly,
oh,
it
it all
was
makes
like
sense now. Like it was, there had to be a
no,
process.
honestly, that was kind of it.
Yeah.
Well, because it was mainly like I knew something was off about me most of my life. Like it was hard to it would have been hard for me to go throughout life and not realize I'm a little screwy.
Hmm.
And so when she said that, my first thought was, okay, finally I know what's wrong. It's not me that's crazy. It's this disorder making me crazy, which was
Hmm.
comforting. And also I was like, oh, so I really am special. I got this rare disorder. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to put something on it. You know, you got to like,
Exactly. Put that spin on it.
yeah.
I bet if I didn't look at it like that, I would have never accepted it because for years people were telling me I was depressed, which looking back, yeah, they were right. And I would just deny it so blatantly because I'm like, I'm not one of these weak assholes who has anxiety and depression. Especially since, you know, in my generation, that kind of stuff can be glorified, and I think it's overstated a lot. So I was very so I would, if it weren't for me being able to put that twist on it, I doubt I would have been able to accept it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that for anyone that's going through. I mean, anyone that's going through any type of, especially to be diagnosed with personality disorder, to be told like, I just break down the words. Your personality is disordered. That's such a hard thing to come across. Like, okay, so
Yeah.
that's such like a huge attack. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can imagine it being such a huge
Yeah.
attack or such a huge like. What do you mean, my
I mean,
personality disorder?
if I knew anything about narcissism before I was diagnosed, I bet I would have also been in denial about it. Because I mean, you go on the internet, it's like narcissists are evil monsters. They hate everybody. And if I
Yeah.
would have read that and somebody would have called me a narcissist, even in a clinical way, I would have been like, what, you're saying I'm a fucking asshole? What's wrong with you? Like, that's bullshit. I'm not a
Yeah.
narcissist. I hate myself.
Before I learned anything about personality disorders or cluster B or BPD or NPD, anything, before I even knew anything about anything mental health wise, I thought anxiety and depression were just excuses to be lazy or to not get things done or
Yeah.
to not do what you wanted to do. Not realizing that, I've never been diagnosed, and I tell people don't diagnose yourself, but I can relate to the symptom criteria of depression a lot. I can relate to
Mhm.
it very well. So, not knowing that my whole life I've been kind of going through this type of thing, whether I have it or
Yeah.
not, it's or something similar. I can relate to it. So
Yeah.
so so yeah. I mean that it's rough. It's rough. It's rough to come to terms with that because I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid. So for
I
my
could
whole life,
tell. I knew it. I fucking knew it. I
yeah,
can. I have ADHD too, so I just like pick up
yeah.
on it so quick. I was
It's
like, "This
so
is this
hard
guy
to. I don't
ADHD."
have the hyperactive one. I have the
Same.
inattentive. So
I have a little bit of hyperactive, but mainly inattentive. Yeah, so that
yeah,
sucks.
yeah. It does, bro.
we,
You can't hold the thought. You're all over the
yeah.
place. You get five thoughts at once, and then you can't. You can only keep track of like two or three of them, and the other
I was
two
about to
get
say.
lost in the abyss. Like
Yeah, we don't even
it's
get the
tough.
fun parts of ADHD, like the being a fucking buckwat. I get it a little bit, but the hyperactive seems like fun. There's like all over the place all the time, high
Yeah.
energy.
There's
No,
also there's
we just can't
impulsivity.
focus on anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, okay. So for you, what do you how would you describe narcissism? I know that's such a
um,
hard thing, but if you could, break it in a small,
honestly,
how would you describe it?
because I mean, honestly, because it is like it's so encompassing, right? How do you
Exactly.
describe somebody's entire personality?
Hmm.
But if I had to, like, at its most core component, I would just call it a self-esteem dysregulation disorder, because basically narcissists, hate themselves, at least subconsciously. And
Hmm.
so we're always looking for affirmation and achievements so that we can feel good about ourselves. But the difference is that we're not using that stuff to love ourselves. We're using it to feel better than other people to shore up our self-esteem, which
I
leads to a horrible, horrible cycle of like nothing's ever good enough because it's
Mhm.
just the hierarchy. We're always looking the next step up. And hell, I used to think that maybe there was satisfaction to that, but I mentioned in my videos Lyndon B. Johnson. He was the president of the United States, and he was like most likely a pathological narcissist, and he was neurotic and miserable.
Mhm.
And it's like, and which is like fucking imagine being the most powerful person in the world, and that's still not good enough for you. That's
Yeah,
fucking crazy.
that is. I love. I forgot that you even. I watched the video where you said that, and I left a comment. It might have been like this long, and I was like, self-esteem regulation disorder, because I've been trying to think of a
Yeah.
different name for narcissism than because narcissism. Because even when one of your more recent videos, you were talking about how if you were doing a spectrum of BPD, NPD, ASPD, and how the traits would go
Yeah.
around. I saw your diagram, and I agree with it. But I was trying to think of a word for it because narcissism would be this healthy narcissism. It means you would love yourself,
Yeah.
and or at least you have a healthy sense of self, to not to the point where you hate yourself or maybe love yourself too much.
Yeah.
But narcissism to me at its core is like, I guess, like some type of defense mechanism when it gets too far into it. But to me, it just didn't make sense. It's like, no, there has to be a different word for this disorder than narcissism, just because it doesn't make sense to me. The actual definition of
Yeah.
narcissism, and then when they put it, they attach it. They're just attaching what it presents itself as from the outside looking in, but not what's actually going on the inside. You know, and
That's what I always say is that like
self-esteem regulation disorder, same as like emotional
unstable.
unstable disorder for
Yeah,
BPD.
exactly.
I like that way more. I like that
I
way.
would see, like, I'm so torn on it because on one hand, I'm like, narcissist sounds cool, but like on the other hand, if I want destigmatized conceptualization and a better name for it, that's definitely the route to go. Oh fuck, damn it, both our ADHDs are going. What would you like to just say?
I was
The name.
saying how I agree with your model about about all the traits of cluster B combined.
Yeah.
That the oh man, this is gonna be a fun interview, right?
Fuck yeah, yeah. Like, hopefully this doesn't happen soon. Because
I agreed with what your self-esteem regulation disorder.
Yeah. Oh no, I remembered. You mentioned that it's like they only acknowledge the external behaviors,
Exactly.
and like that's something I always say. Like, especially even in some of these articles, the ones that are like even remotely accurate, they'll get like the behaviors right, and then like they'll attribute some wild like motivation. Like, let's take love bombing for instance, where they're like, the narcissist is trying to fucking pull you in so they can take advantage of you and drain you of narcissistic supply. And I'm like, have you considered the idea that we're people and we actually think we're in love with these people because we are emotionally dysregulated and are desperate for love that we didn't get as children? Have you considered that, author?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, the reason why I got into all this, I've told you this, but I was, I don't like to put this person's spot. I don't want to blow up this person's spot. So I cared for very deeply for somebody, I still do to this day, but for a very long time, for years. And halfway through my time being with this person, I realized, or we came to a conclusion together that she might have BPD. Then we figured, okay, well, what's the next step? Now I'm trying to figure out, okay, there's no pill for it, there's no cure. I'm completely blank to any of this stuff whatsoever. There's no pill for it, there's no cure for it. The only thing I see is dialectical behavioral therapy. So I'm like, all right, boom. So we were able eventually to get her into that. And for anyone who has BPD watching this, I highly, highly, highly recommend DBT. I do believe it works. At least the negative symptomatology decreases a lot.
Yes.
Over time, at least.
So sorry, give me 2 seconds. My friend is fucking spamming me, so I'm putting my phone on do not disturb. All right, there we go.
Yeah. So as I got into it, I realized, okay, so I found out about BPD, and then I realized I kept hearing, okay, well, if someone has a personality disorder, especially BPD, there's like a 50 to 80% chance they have another personality disorder, probably also inside the cluster B group. And I was like, oh crap. So all right, so now I have to figure out all these other 10 personality disorders and start researching them as well. That's how I came across vulnerable narcissism, and I started seeing a lot of covert, vulnerable, whatever. I started seeing a lot of similarities, and then I was like, okay, so now I have to learn about narcissism, and it just went down this whole rabbit hole, and that's how I kind of came across it, And
I mean, like, that's the thing with personality disorders. I swear, you look like, for me, I had one, so that was something else. But you had to, then you get into the other cluster Bs, then you have to analyze all that. Then you're going to look at the other clusters eventually. Then you're going to look at other concepts related to personality disorders, what comorbidities they're going to have, substance abuse issues. And then like the issue is that you see the entire world through this like lens of personality disorders once you get too deep into it.
Yeah, and that's bad too. I went through that. That, and
armchair diagnosing everyone you see.
yeah. Well, I want to diagnose them because I know I'm not capable of it. But what I will say is and to this day, this is what I do. When I see certain characteristics or traits repeated habitually by somebody, I don't diagnose them. I don't say, oh, there's definitely, I don't, but like my eyes over here, my eye is like, okay, well, something going on over there. I don't know what it is. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough knowledge or research. I don't even have, even if I was a therapist, I can't just go walking through the street diagnosing people that I don't know anyway.
That'd be fucking hilarious. So imagine a therapist walking up, that guy's ASPD, that just throwing out diagnoses everywhere.
Just handing out flyers.
Yeah. It's like, do you want a diagnosis? Here you go. Oh, it'd be funny. Just put your name here and here.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I usually say, like, oh, they had some. I don't know if they had or not. They have some big traits though, and a big thing though that made me start reconceptualizing how like my armchair diagnoses is just going to DSM. You have to have clinically significant distress or impairment in your social life, your work life, or any vocational functioning.
Yeah.
So it's like, so there's some dude that's an asshole. I'm like, he got some narcissist flavor to him. But then like his life is fine. I'm like, well, he can't be a narcissist. His life is fine.
Yeah, he probably just woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day. Maybe you
right.
woke him the wrong way. Something.
Yeah, maybe I'm the dick.
Personalities, they mix and match and clash all the time. You know, like I'm cool. There's people at my job that I'm cool with. Both of these people, but they don't get along. And I can't describe why. I can't. Maybe I'm just an agreeable person. I don't know. Maybe on the 5-factor model, I'm high on agreeableness. Whatever the case may be.
That's actually a good point. It's like maybe it's not an issue with them. Maybe it's just the combination of how those personalities interact with each other. Yeah, which that's actually really wise, dude. I want to start thinking about that a little bit more, because I'm just like, I think that like black and white thinking. I'm just like, oh, that person's a dick, right? That person's really nice. So it's like, no, it's the interaction between them that actually make those opinions possible. Yeah, I know I'm an asshole, but
no, it's the gray area. It's the gray area, you know. But yeah, like I said, before I even knew about any of this stuff, if I just thought of narcissism, I thought of some guy who likes to look good and who might be a prick sometimes to people. Not even an a-hole, not even as far as an a-hole. I didn't even have the stigma of them being a jerk or an a-hole. Just sometimes you could be a little dickish, you know. But
like people, there's a lot of people who don't even realize it's a disorder. There was somebody who commented on my channel who was studying psychology and was like, "I'll be real, before I find your videos, I didn't know this was actually a disorder." They think it's just a pejorative.
Yeah, that's another thing. I have friends, or I have people that I know that are in psychology or they're doing social work, and I'll bring up personality disorders, or I'll bring up some of this stuff, and they look at me like, "Huh?" And I'm like, wait, how far are you along in school? And they're like, oh, I'm almost done. This is my last semester. I'm like, and you don't know anything. So what is this, like a special avenue you have to go down to learn about this type of stuff? Because to me, it seems like a lot of problems that happen in relationships or whatever might stem from personality disorders or
personality dysfunction. Yeah.
Even if subclinical, even if they don't have the actual, you know, just those certain traits in general, you know. But
and it's funny. I had a friend who was actually, she was qualified to be a counselor, and she took one abnormal psych class. And that's because the mental health institution isn't focused on treating people with personality disorders, but people who are relatively speaking well-adjusted, well, substance abuse probably too, who are relatively speaking well-adjusted, and like they're just counselors being able to be like, okay, talk to me about why you and your wife got into this fight or some shit like that. They're not dealing with this extreme suicidality, with violent emotional dysregulation. I mean, they didn't even, personality disorders weren't even acknowledged, like, and they were just thought of as incurable until like the 70s or 80s, when they were doing psychology for half a century prior.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember BPD was just like, I just recently, since DBT came out, there was like, oh, yeah, people are they can't be helped at all, and then out of nowhere now there's an 80% remission in symptoms, you know. So
it's funny actually. Isn't it Marsha Lyman who made DBT?
I can't remember her name. I think actually it might be with a B. Her name might begin with a B, but I don't remember honestly.
Because evidently she had borderline personality disorder. And somebody once said that they thought I was going to be the her of NPD, and that was probably the best compliment I got in my life.
No, bro, go into, you know, I watch enough. I've probably seen at least half of your videos, if not, you know, more. Yeah. And you know, I'm personally just watching you before I even got a chance to speak with you. I was personally a fan because of how you articulate yourself and how you. Yeah. You know, you're very knowledgeable on this topic. And I think if you went into some type of some type of counseling. If you could go past your own limitations and your
Yeah.
own whatever symptom criteria, whatever difficulties you may have, I think you would be great at helping other people that would at least be willing to accept help.
I
You
mean,
know,
that'd be fucking crazy. I mean, like, hey, who's better to help a narcissist than I'm a narcissist, I guess.
I honestly, actually, I kind of believe that, because I'm in a Facebook group that I joined like years ago where there's people with cluster B personality disorders, and I usually stay very quiet in that group. I don't talk too much, but you should see it. I mean, you can see how these people interact. They'll talk about like, oh, like empaths. How am I just supposed to be psychic and to know how this person feels? Just by
Yeah.
looking at them, and so you get a really good view from how people might with cluster B personality disorders, how they view the world, how they view other people, just by
Yeah.
reading comments and seeing how they interact
Honestly,
with each other.
I would advise anybody who wants to learn about personality disorders, go on like their subreddits and stuff like that. See how they interact, see what their thought process is. You can only find out so much from don't get I recommend research literature too.
Yeah,
But you're never going into the internal experience of somebody by reading research, by seeing statistics. It's when you actually like I had no idea how similar I was to other narcissists until I met Tess or Spirit Nook.
hmm
Because she was, and I was like, holy shit, somebody is saying all the things my entire life. I am so sorry about that, by the way. My
don't worry
Discord is
about
going
it.
off. And, but yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was crazy.
Yeah,
I never,
I like her too. I like Spirit too. I reached out to her as well. I like to interview her eventually
oh,
too.
did you?
I like the
Yeah,
way she articulates herself as well. She's very open. You know.
she's great. She's going through it right now. So I expect that,
Yeah.
like, you'll be, sorry about that. I
Right.
expect that she'll probably get back to you eventually. I'll even mention it to her, but yeah, she's just going through it.
Yeah, no, no, no. I spoke to her. She told me she was going through a lot. I'm like, yo, man, take
Yeah.
your time, man. Do whatever you gotta do. But yeah, all right. So I'm gonna go down the steps because so I'm trying to do this. So for people who have like no idea what narcissism is, they might just think what I
Yes.
what I said earlier. Someone who likes to look good and might be a dick sometimes to people.
Yeah.
We're the people who have no idea what it is. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are watching this right now for that reason. So I'm gonna go down the symptom criteria and tell me how you. And by the way, in order to be diagnosed with personality disorder, for anyone watching, whether you're watching this and you think you have it, or it has to be pervasive in multiple aspects of your life, like Jake just said. So whether it's your social life, your family life, your work life, your relationship life, it has to be these symptom criteria. It has to be pervasive in those, and it also has to bring you some form of discomfort. It has to be something that affects you negatively. And it has to be habitual. It can't just be like, okay, I was grandiose with a sense of self-importance this
Yeah.
one time in my life. That means you're a narcissist. No, it has to be. You have to recognize it in yourself or recognize it in a person close to you or whatever. Has to be
It's
habitual, whether it's daily, weekly, maybe monthly. I'm not sure if that's too far, but
like
so
I think a really good way to put it is I was once listening to this professor talk about personality disorders, and he's like, it's normal to go through the personality disorders and think I have every single one of these. That means you're normal. That means your personality is flexible through a large range of situations.
okay.
If you're going through that list and it's like not me, not me, not me, not me, oh my god, every single one, not me, not me, not me, then
Yeah.
you might want to seek therapy.
There you go. There you go. So, all right. So, a grandiose sense of self-importance. How does that? Is that something you
How's it
experience,
manifest?
or yeah?
Yes.
How do you experience it?
It's interesting because this is one of those symptoms that are almost it can be invisible to me sometimes. Like I know usually I think though it has to do with a hierarchical thinking, right?
Mhm.
So well for the viewers at home, narcissists have this thing called hierarchical thinking where basically we rank everything in terms of what's best and worst. And then you notice I just said best and worst, that was actually subconscious because it also relates to black and white thinking where since we rate things as better or worse, it's always one or the other, best or worst.
Mhm.
And I think the grandiose part comes in is that since we're ranking people, we think we're better than other people. We think we're more important. We think we're smarter. I go out into the world and I think, man, all these people are just like pathetic. Maybe, yeah, I say pathetic sometimes. These people are so stupid. I'm actually changing the world with like my YouTube content. Sometimes that's a big thing too, like overestimating how much of an impact and how I'm affecting everybody around me. But that can also go the other direction, right? I think I am like the grandiosity goes hand in hand with the vulnerability, where it's like, yes, I'm better than everybody. I'm the best thing in the world. And then I'm nothing. I am worse than everybody. I am the worst person in the world. I affect nothing. I'm a loser, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's less about the grandiosity and more about the fluctuations between grandiosity and vulnerability that they're actually the impairing part, right?
I agree.
Because it's like, if I'm just grandiose, then like, you know, I'm doing pretty good then. I don't really I don't really have any complaints. But because we fluctuate like that, that's where the issue comes in. Anyway, so yeah.
Okay. So what about a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love? You know?
I will sit in my house sometimes, and like this actually impacts my hobbies too, because like I'm learning coding right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just thinking I'm going to make this awesome AI. I'm going to get into deep learning. I'm going to be the smartest and best coder who ever existed. Or like fantasies of ideal love is when I am, or like, yeah, I'll have like fantasies about being a genius too and stuff like that. Whenever I'm in a relationship, I'm thinking, this is going to be my soulmate. This is going to be the person who understands me completely and will have the perfect relationship. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person. I didn't realize I was a fantasy of ideal love until like I was literally getting interviewed for that conference in Norway. And like I was playing that and I was like, fuck, that's fantasy of ideal love. I didn't think I did that.
Yeah.
And which is fucking hilarious. But yeah, and it actually impacts my hobbies, because then when I don't live up to those grandiose fantasies, I feel worthless. It's the same with my YouTube channel. Every now and then I'll get into the state where I'm like lying in bed being like, my channel is never going to take off. It's never going to achieve. Like, why am I only at about 10K now? Why am I only at 10K subscribers? I should be doing so much better, but I'm not.
You got 100K, you know?
Exactly. Why am I not 100K? Why am I not on 1 million yet? Why are there any narcissist channels out there doing better than mine? Eventually though, that does so that does affect me really negatively sometimes, just because of my unrealistic expectations for myself.
I will say, the more I got into narcissism, the more I related with. I can relate to a lot of the symptom criteria, but it just might not be at the such pervasive rate. Like I've had fantasies of like sometimes I'll the same thing that you were just talking about. You're getting into coding, and then now you jump from, okay, I'm starting coding to one day I'm gonna have the best AI machine is gonna take over the world, whatever the case may be. Something similar as like something like I'll be like, okay, like when I was little, I used to love to write poetry, and I used to turn into me like to rap, and then it would immediately become one day I'm gonna be the best rapper in the world. And like, that's okay to have, but like
as long as you don't give up when you don't reach those as long as you're okay not being the best, more or less, because I think that's when it causes the impairment, is when like I literally can't commit to hobbies because I'm so ashamed that I'm not the best yet.
That's the twist. See me, I'll just give up because I lost passion for it, or I lost. But it's never because, oh, I'm not the best at it, so I'm gonna stop. I still write to this day. I mean, I'm not planning on becoming the next Eminem or the next, whatever. But I still write my poetry to this day. Every once in a while, I'll do something, but I never like make songs. I don't do anything like that. But that's just an example. It could be almost anything though. And the first thought in my head is, I'm gonna be the best at this, or it'll jump to an unrealistic thing, and then I gotta bring myself back down. So
see, I don't bring myself back down.
See,
well, when I bring myself down, it goes all the way.
Oh no! I bring myself down to like here, not down here. I'm here, and then I don't bring it down to here though. But so okay, and I can say the same with ideal love too. I could do the same with ideal love. But okay, so a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. And this is the hierarchical thinking. This is the hierarchical thinking you're talking about.
It's funny because that's also the hierarchical thinking, and this manifests very interestingly for me nowadays, because I'm like, my special group is people with cluster B personality disorders, right? It's like, oh, we're special, we're different, we like think the right way. Like I literally got into a narky conversation with one of my friends where we were like, we just see the world accurately, like compared to everybody else. Like it's like we know that the world is cruel, that people are backstabbing, et cetera, et cetera. And so our in group in that way it can present. When I was younger, it was mainly about intelligence, right? It's like I'm uniquely intelligent. I can't only intelligent people can understand me. I know I'm different, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the one symptom criteria that I'm like, oh well, no, because it leads to loneliness, doesn't it? That I alienate myself from people because I want to be different, but deep down I want to be understood, and I don't open myself up to the idea that people could relate to me unless they're part of my in group.
Okay. This is one of my favorite ones. A need for excessive admiration.
I think this should be the top criteria.
I watched your video that you said, I think this will change your view on narcissism forever. And I think it was the same video you did the diagram. I just watched it last night. And one of my questions, 2 days ago, I was coming up with this question. And it was a dangerous question for me because neither one of us are trained or should be even. But I wanted to ask you if you could redefine your own symptom criteria. What would it be? And I watched the video, and I'll even tag it in this video. But
nice. But that's probably my proudest video right now. I love that one.
I really, really, really like that one because that was gonna be one of my questions after I did all the actual symptom criteria. What would you redefine it as? But okay, so
excessive admiration.
A need for excessive admiration. They said, how does this affect you? And what would you call it? And
it made me start a YouTube channel, but see, that's the thing. People, so like it's funny because I see on these articles all the time, people talk about narcissistic supply. Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that as a term can be useful. But like people forget that like the purpose of that is to shore up our self-esteem. We feel bad about ourselves. And so we need to go out and get people to tell us that we're good so we can believe it. We actually rely on other people to define ourselves. I don't know how to know who I am if somebody doesn't tell me. Like once Tess said that to me, I was like, fine, yes, you put into words. Which is crazy. I have to ask my friends all the time, do you think I'm like this? Do you think I'm like this? I need constant feedback. And then but I call it self-esteem juice. I'm always looking for this admiration because otherwise I'll fall into those vulnerable states where I'm like miserable and hate myself. I fall to the bottom of the hierarchy unless people are telling me I'm on top of it. You want to flatter a narcissist? Compare them favorably. Like if you go to a narcissist and you say, hey, you're like really attractive. Yeah, they'll love that. But like if you really want to get them to love it, say you're the most attractive person in this room. They'll fucking they'll lose their shit being so happy. Like that comparative compliments, those hit different. But that is, in my opinion, that's the difference between grandiosity and genuine pride, though, is that if you're genuinely prideful and like proud of yourself and love yourself, you can say, oh, I'm really good at this. I'm really happy that I am. When you start comparing yourself to others and saying, I'm better at this than everybody else is, that's when I think it turns into grandiosity.
Yeah. Okay. A sense of entitlement. This is like it's almost similar to the grandiose thing to me, but
this is a symptom I see the least in myself. Like I kind of like, for me, the only time I can think of entitlement is like in my friend groups. I expect this unwavering loyalty for them to like cut out people because I don't get along with them and stuff like that. Like, so I feel like, but to me, it just feels like that's a natural expectation for that loyalty. And I hold myself to those standards too, but I just make excuses for myself when I fail them, if I'm being honest. But that's the only real example I can think of with it. I just think like, well, that's how friends should act, you know? I don't know. I'm trying to think of other times.
So you're not like waiting in the line at McDonald's and then the person in front of you, it takes too long with their order or something, and you're not like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of just like a petty example. That never happens for you.
I'll never cut a line, but I guess like I kind of do. that's more envy, I get. I don't know. I never have an urge to cut a line. I never really think about that, if I'm being honest. I don't know. That's something I gotta think
Well, I
about
mean, not
more
even
because
cutting the
I
line,
think
just getting mad
entitlement's
that the
just not
person
one I
in
have.
front of you is taking too long, and they should be more cautious. They should be more aware of that, that you're behind them, and that you know. I guess that would be more like the entitlement type of thing. Something along the lines of that. Not so much cutting
Okay.
the line, but it's like something happens
Yeah.
that you don't expect, and then you're just like, oh, because I go through this. I go through this. I'm like, bro, this person is
Actually,
not
yeah,
behind
that
them.
I'm thinking about it. Okay, because like I remember I'm like thinking back to like for an example, and then this happens a lot actually. That like this, I guess I do get that feeling a lot. I remember this woman like knocked over some pens when she was in line, and she was like picking them up, and I was just sitting there thinking, this idiot should move out of my way while she cleans up these pens so I can get my shit done. I am running behind right now, but you know she didn't.
A
I
lot
was
of
very
people can
upset.
relate to that though. And like I'm
Yeah,
saying, I'm trying to
I
humanize
think that
people.
one may. I think that one may not be pathological because I don't really. Again, I use the
Yeah,
friends example because that actually has like killed friendships before, so it's impeding functioning.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. It's weird.
I do have a similar type of thing though, where it's like yo, I'm not getting along with that person, so why you know?
Yeah.
But then I try to humble myself. I'm like I can't ask this person not to be friends with this person just because I'm not friends with this person. But I
Yeah.
see where you're coming from with that though. I see where you're coming from with that.
Eventually, like that, I eventually kind of had to come to that conclusion because I'd fuck up so many of my friendships expecting that unwavering loyalty.
Yeah.
And then I barely do it myself because I'm a piece of shit. But
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't mean to agree with you that you're a piece of shit.
No, I know what you mean.
I was like, yeah,
You're like, man, she really is a piece of shit.
yeah,
Wow, I
I
didn't really think about
concur.
that before.
Nah, all right, so interpersonally exploitive behavior.
So this one's interesting because like
It is.
I used to be way better at it. Way better. Ooh, Freudian slip. I used to be way worse at it with it. But Dr. Todd Grande made a really good example of this,
I
where
love
like
Dr. Grande.
he's great. Well, he used to be great. Nowadays, I don't like what he posts nowadays.
Okay.
But he like I'll watch it every now and then. Well, I wish he would do what he used to do, basically, like research focus, explain personality disorders.
Yeah.
Nowadays, he critiques celebrities.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I see
but
that. I see that. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah. So he a good example he gave was dating somebody because they are high status or they have a lot of money or they're more attractive than everybody else. That's being exploited. They're only doing it for those reasons because it'll make them look good, which I did not. It didn't even occur to me that was interpersonal exploitation because technically this is like an example I always give of how I would get self-esteem juice is I'd be dating somebody and I would want that girl to dress provocatively so men would look at her, think she's attractive, and be envious of me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love when people are envious of me. Oh my god.
Hmm.
Um, and but like that's exploitative. I'm using her for the means of self-esteem juice,
Yeah.
and like people read that and they're like, oh, they're going to steal your money and shit like that. It's not. We're more about the emotional exploitation rather than like material gain. Material gain is more ASPD.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so like I do stuff like that a lot where I will like especially back when I was younger, all my friendships would be very transactional or very surface level for the purpose of my self-esteem. Right? Look how many friends I have, look how popular I am. All of them are admiring me too. It was for the purpose of self-esteem regulation. So
Okay.
that's mainly how the interpersonal exploitation presents, just like using people to those ends.
Honestly, I can relate to that example too. About 10 years ago, I was dating this.
You're relating too much to all these, man.
No,
Are you
no, no.
okay?
Listen, man. I'm trying to, like I said,
I'm
I'm trying
joking.
to humanize. I'm trying to humanize it, and I'm
Yeah, yeah.
trying to. So I bring up. I don't want you to. I'm just gonna not sit here and be like, la, 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 la. If I can't
You're
relate
like
to it, I can't
this
relate
guy's
to it.
weird as shit.
Yeah, yeah,
I
no.
got you.
I was dating this chick 10 years ago. She was so pretty. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I would love getting out the car with her, and I would get out the car.
yeah.
She would get out the car, and everybody on the block would just be looking at us, and I would be like,
Right.
yeah, you know that's you know that's your
I
boy.
guess
You
that's
know.
the. I guess that's the difference is that you weren't in. Were you intentionally doing that?
I know I liked her. I liked her for her, and I liked her because
Okay.
she was really pretty. But that was just a little side thing. That was just like when I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, huh, huh, yeah, you see what's going
That's
on
your
here.
there's your self-esteem. Everybody needs a little self-esteem juice.
Yeah, yeah, man. Um, Okay, so this is probably my favorite, but a lack of empathy.
Ooh,
So,
the big boy right there.
yeah, the big
So
one.
this one's so like my experience, and I have ASPD traits too, so my experience may line up more with that. Because for me, I just lack emotional empathy. I can generally get a pretty good idea of how somebody's feeling based off of their body language and stuff like that. I just don't have an emotional reaction to it at all. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
like, it seems annoying to feel other people's emotions, honestly. I think this is one of the perks of being a narcissist.
Okay.
But I also hear a lot saying like that most narcissists, like unlike me, they don't have like they just don't realize it because they're so self-absorbed. Like they don't even like consider the other person. And this is true too. I often do this as well. But that's where one of the more stronger like symptoms of lack of empathy would present, because it's like we're so concerned about like getting our self-esteem regulation needs met. Like fucking when I was using that girl like that, making her just provocatively, it didn't even occur to me that that might be exploitative. It didn't occur to me that like that might make her upset for some reason. I don't really understand why it would make her upset, if I'm being honest. But but like it didn't even occur to me just because I was so focused on my own needs.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the more common way that that presents, rather than me being like me actually like I do lack all emotional empathy, but that doesn't seem to be the rule.
Yeah, and I mean, I also want to point out, people with NPD, they have cognitive empathy, at the very least.
Yeah,
At least, at least from
I
what I hear, at least, they have cognitive empathy. They can understand that you might be feeling shitty because your grandma just died.
yeah,
They might not feel it in their chest, or they might not immediately think of their grandma dying, and then be able to have a frame of reference and then apply it to you and have this emotional attachment
yeah.
attached to it. But they'll
I'd be like, oh, that
understand.
sucks. Oh well.
yeah, yeah,
Like I
yeah.
get it.
Like, oh man, like what do you want from me?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I've
like,
also
oh
heard it even
man,
gets to
that's
the
so
point where it's like annoying. It's like, all right, so why are you telling me?
yeah, yeah.
You're kind of bothering me
I'm
with
like,
this information.
it's like, dude, you're really killing the vibe right now. Like, come on.
The way I like to think about empathy, or at least when it comes to NPD and empathy, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I view it is like, okay, I was telling you I have a studio apartment. So
Yeah,
let's say I have a balloon that just can inflate nonstop, right? So
yeah.
I'm in a room right now, right? And I have this balloon that it won't pop. As long as I just keep filling it, it won't pop. So the room would be the amount of space you have for other people, and the balloon is
Mm,
how much ego you have for yourself.
yeah. How
You can
self-focused you are.
fill it up to maybe this big, this big,
Yeah,
this big, but eventually it fills up to the point where you don't even have room to think of others. You don't even
yeah,
have room to process what others might be going through or thinking, because the balloon just consumed the whole room. I can't even move in this room, let alone,
hmm
I can think about about what's going on with you. That's the way I kind of viewed it. And
yeah.
I don't know if that's the correct way to view it.
No, that's a great metaphor. I'll credit you,
Steal
of
it,
course. I
take
might
it,
use that at some point, because
take it.
that's a brilliant metaphor. It describes it perfectly. I think anybody could like understand what I'm saying based off of that.
Yeah, and the more so, but and maybe on the deeper level, it's just the more deeper level would be what you said, is because you're just so uh um uh what's the word? You're so filled with filling your own the need to fill your own desires
Yeah.
and wants and needs is just
It's like if you're drowning, you're not going to be particularly concerned about the other people drowning in the moment. You're going to be focused on your own survival at that
yeah.
point.
It's like a constant state of an airplane crashing, and you just
Yeah,
need to put your life suit on before
yeah,
you put someone else's on. But you just never get to the point
exactly.
of putting someone else's on.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
put
You just
yours
can't
on
fucking get it
first.
on. You're like, oh god damn it, how's this
Yeah,
work?
I can't tie this thing right. It's not fitting.
No, exactly. Yeah,
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, that's the way I always kind of pictured it, but I never really get the chance to ask anybody, hey, you
yeah.
think this is correct or not? But all right. So envy of others, or belief that others are envious of him or her. So then you kind of touched on this a little bit, but
I did. I do believe it's funny because somebody gets mad at me or insults me or something especially on YouTube. If somebody on YouTube gives a negative comment, my immediate thought is, oh, they're just envious, because I almost can't comprehend how somebody could just like, and sometimes I'm sure that's accurate, but I just can't even comprehend. Like, I view my content so grandiosely that I can't comprehend why somebody wouldn't like it if it weren't for a reason like that. I mean, there are times I'm like, oh my God, they hate me for, or whatever. But like, I genuinely think I do deflect and make it an issue about them.
Mm.
Or like growing up, I always thought all my friends were envious of me. And that's why I felt betrayed so often. But when I do, people are envying me and I know it, I love it, because that means that they want what I have. That means I'm worth something. Um, Again, me and Tess were talking about it. Like we were knocking on, being like, he's like, don't you love when people envy you? I'm like, oh my fucking God, yes. It's some of the best self-esteem juice.
Yeah.
And you can see how that kind of turns around something that did hurt my ego, like an insult, and turns it into something that's actually validating. You know what I mean? So like it's an interesting defense mechanism that I don't think is talked about as much as it should be.
Yeah.
A big way.
It's such a flip side of coin. It's so,
yeah,
to me, it's wild how
yeah,
some people go from being it's like living in two states at the same time. You know, everyone's envious of
yeah.
me, but I'm kind of envious of others at the same time.
hmm
Even
Oh
if
my
you're not willing
God, me and
to
Tess
admit
have.
it to yourself. To me, I can't. That's something. That's as much as I would like to. I can try to visualize it, but I can't relate as much.
Yeah,
Like, okay, a friend of mine. I could say this. A friend of mine that I was friends with recently, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, created their had this great idea to bring foreign snacks over from another country and
oh yeah,
make a shop out of it. And it's a great idea. And I haven't
yeah,
seen this person in forever. We kind of had a falling out, but I know I still have love and respect for that person. I've even seen that person since. And my first thought when I saw it was I was jealous. I
yeah.
don't know why. I don't know why, but the first inclination I had was jealousy. And then immediately after, I was like, "Whoa, whoa, Dave, what? Like, nah, bro. Like,
Yeah.
he's doing a great thing." And then like, so this is what I say: when everyone has narcissistic qualities, even the most empathic person has
Yeah.
narcissistic qualities. It just might not be as
And we'll be,
or they might not be
yeah,
able
that's the
to check
thing.
them in the moment.
We'll all be narcissistic. Like a good way to put it that somebody said is that like we're all going to be narcissistic at one point or another. Narcissists can just only be narcissistic. I
Yeah.
also want to touch on that with envy. There's also an entitlement component, because
Okay.
it's like I'm like, let's put, when I am envying somebody, it turns into entitlement almost. Like I'm thinking of like, once I was like thinking about Jeff Bezos and like, he's fucking rich. I'm like thinking, I should be the one with that fucking money. I could do so much better with it. I could,
Yeah.
like it's weird. That's
Yeah.
entitlement, right?
Uh-huh.
Or fucking, especially when I was younger. And I think this envy was kind of warranted when like I just see people walking around who had better lives than I did. And I was just like in childhoods, and I was just like thinking, they have no way, like it's like this resentment. They have no idea how lucky they have it. They do not appreciate everything that they have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Or just envy of me and Tess. We said, I keep bringing up Tess. We say
Yeah.
they're like, we said the same thing last night, where we were like, we would wake up when we were like young, like kids, and think, I wish I could be anybody in the world but myself. And how to this day I kind of feel like that. Like I'm envious. I am envious. Hell, I'm envious of you right now, just because it's like I feel like you probably, I don't know for sure, obviously, but you're able to connect from how you talk on it. I assume this. You're able to connect to people at a deeper level than I
Hmm.
can, and I envy people all the time for
Yeah, well, it's because I literally, I try my best to, that's one thing I realized. That's one, not to toot my own horn, that I realized I can do is I can, as long as I'm given the right context. People come to me for advice for things all the time, and I don't know why people are coming to advice from me because I honestly I think I'm not the smartest mother. What I gotta try not to curse on for YouTube. I'm not the smartest person out there. I'm really not. But people come to me advice all the time, and I realized it was one person that told me is like, nah, bro, it's just because you give both sides of the coin anytime you give advice. Like, say, like you don't. If you want to just hear
that.
your right, if you
Yeah,
just want to hear your right, you don't want to come to me for advice.
yeah,
I'm not. I will tell you. Listen, you kind of, if you and now if you paint, you give me a story. You paint a picture of, oh well, this person did this and this and this and this and this and this, and I'm going to ask you, okay, so
yeah,
what did you do to make that person want to do that? And then if you get offended that I asked you that, it's like, no, I did nothing.
Yeah.
I did nothing. I'm like, okay. Oh, from
I,
what
I
I'm
mean,
hearing, you probably did
honestly,
something.
dude. I mean, honestly, dude, like, I'm not sure how you want to react to this, but it's just like something I'm like, I pick up on things, obviously. Like, I picked up on your ADHD earlier. I thought that
Yeah.
was hilarious. But like, every now and then I'll meet somebody, and based off of our interaction so far, I just get the fucking feeling that you're just one of those people who is just like super genuine. And so, that's not a kind of
Yeah.
person I fucking envy. And my because I every now and then, like, it's a specific type of person. Like, there's generally genuine people, then there's like people I look at and I'm like, I'm not sure I can even imagine them lying because of just how, like, obviously they are just being a legit person in the moment. And I admire that a lot. Not gonna lie.
When I was younger, I had a lot of issues lying. It was a defense mechanism against my mom. My mom would always be like, she would always and she'll probably see this too, but she would always not attack me. It was, my mom has certain behaviors about her. I don't want to blow her spot up too much, but
Yeah,
not attack me physically, not, but it just always felt like I was doing something wrong, always.
yeah,
So I kind of had to learn to lie a lot around her with a straight face, not have to. There's certain things about ASPD I relate to a lot too,
yeah.
but especially as a child, and and manipulation and stuff like that. I used to learn how to do that at a very young age, and then I had to grow out of it. Eventually, I
Yeah.
realized, okay,
You matured.
the more I lie, yeah, the more I lie, the more webs I have to create, the more it just gets annoying. And then I'm just like, I don't even want to do all this. At this point, I'm like, yeah, mom, I like to smoke weed, big deal.
Yeah.
Or, you
It's
know,
funny. I never people always ask me, like, it sounds so exhausting to keep to like have those mental gymnastics or to keep track of your lies and stuff like that. And obviously I don't lie as much anymore.
mhm,
But like, it's never been hard for me. It feels natural. It feels like if I make a lie about something, it effectively becomes my truth to the point that, like, I almost believe it. It's just in the back of my head. I'm like, no, that's not true. But
yeah.
generally, like, I've never had issues keeping track of my web of lies back then. And I
For
am
me,
self-aggrandizing a little bit, but I don't mean to.
eventually it'll get to the point where I would get discovered or something, and I would be like, all right, I can't. And once it started leaking out of my, just between me and my mom, into it
Yeah.
started. I started doing it with friends and stuff. That's when I realized, and I told one of my friends, Grandiose, a long time ago. I was like, I used to tell him the same thing I'm telling you. I used to lie a lot as a kid, and then when I started, as I was probably 13, 14, it started leaking out into my friend, like my friends and stuff. And I realized, and then but for teachers, I would lie about, why I don't have my homework. Every single day I would have a new lie
Mm,
about why I don't have classwork. And it became
funny.
too much. So eventually I was like, I didn't do it. Or
I mean, it was super mature of you to like realize that you were and like self-reflective for you to realize that and to
yeah.
be able to like take accountability and change it. It's impressive.
Yeah, no, like I
I'm
said,
still figuring that out.
yeah, man. I mean, I got I'm turning 32 in April. So, you have, it takes a long time. It wasn't until I started doing all of this mental health stuff that I realized more about myself. The more I
Yeah.
researched about it, that's the funny thing. The more I researched about disorders without gluing things, attaching them like to myself, I started
Yeah.
realizing more about myself. The more you learn about certain disorders, the more you can reflect
Yep.
on yourself, as long as you have a realistic view on it and you don't go overboard. And I don't think a lot of people have that.
Yes.
A lot of people,
I would say that, I mean, like, it's hard not to what's the word? Like, when you're researching personality disorders, like, you have to reflect, you have to think, how do I act? How do
mhm,
I think?
yeah,
And like, it basically, like, I think personality disorders and learning about them can make anybody a better person just based off of the fact that it forces you to look at yourself. Because, and like, even if it's on accident, you're going to be like, wait, am I a narcissist? And so you're going to be going through your memories, going through your life,
one of my
looking
first
at the things
questions
that
I
you do.
asked myself.
Yep.
That
Yep.
was one of the first.
Exactly.
I was like, am I? Wait, hold on. What's going on here? Am I a narcissist? And I had
Mm-hmm.
to, and then I think anyone that has watched this video has probably had that moment where they were
Mm-hmm.
like, am I? And if they did this, or we still have one more some of the criteria, but then if they did this, then they were like, they came to the conclusion they were, or they weren't, or maybe they are, but they don't have the self reflection, the self awareness to admit they are. Who knows? But
Yeah.
and then I guess the last one is a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes.
Yeah, I was pretty bad about in high school. I was really bad about that one. Nowadays, it's more of a condescending attitude, just kind of like, it's the hierarchical thinking, right?
Mhm.
Oh, you're not on my level, like whatever. Like I don't really like. I wish I could describe the internal experience of that one better because there's not much like going on internally. It's kind of like, oh, I'm better than you, whatever. But that one's just pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
yeah. All right. Um, so there's similarities that I've noticed in all the cluster B personality disorders.
Yes.
Like, and for me, I liked when you made, and this is something I'm kind of just reading. I don't even have this written down or anything. It's just I liked your view on in that video, and I think I want to tag that video once I figure out how to. I want to tag not just your channel, but your that
That
video
video
to
over
this
yeah.
one because um like I've always noticed. Okay, now I've watched a bunch of different YouTubers. Mental illness.
Yeah.
Um, uh, your channel, HG Tutor. There's also this girl. She wrote Confessions of a Sociopath. Her name's Emmy
Oh
Thomas.
yeah.
Really good book. She has her own YouTube channel. She talks to other people, but the faces are just blurred. So it's something you really
Yeah.
need to listen to. But a lot of and I noticed similar, and I've watched plenty of people with channels that have BPD, and there's the similarities I've noticed between NPD and BPD is a lack of identity or
Yeah.
some type of lack of sense of self. And
Yes.
even though I think that's a BPD criteria,
It
I've
is.
noticed a lot of people with NPD feel it. And then
It's like
also,
it's weird. We feel like deep down we don't know who we are, but on the surface we have a personality, if that makes sense.
I remember asking because I literally the same way I just went through this in the criteria with you. Once me and someone I was very close with figured out about BPD, I went down the list with her, or we looked at it together,
Yeah.
and it was funny because I was like a lack of identity or whatever. Like for me, I didn't see that in her, and she was like, no, that's very true. That's very real. And I looked at her. I'm like, what do you mean? She was like, well, growing up, I would see other people, and I would see
Oh,
how strong of if it's like they had such a strong personality or such a strong whatever, and I can
oh, that's a
automatically
word they use
tell,
all the time.
and I don't have that. She's like, I just never had that, but I could always see it in other people, and it was so confusing to me. I didn't understand that.
It's
It's like,
confusing to me too. If you ever want to see something fucking interesting, go to somebody with BPD, ask them to write a paragraph about themselves. They'll flip out. They won't know what to do.
yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because like all the time people talk about losing themselves in people, and like not all the time. In reference to me, it's happening quite a few times, but I don't understand it. I don't understand how somebody, and they'll use that term, strong personality. Let's say that you have such a strong personality that people tend to lose themselves, and I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like
Yeah,
what are you guys, how does that even happen? Is your personality like that, and why wouldn't you just not do that, basically? And
yeah,
I know that's not accurate to be like, why don't you
yeah.
just not do it? But yeah, it's a concept that's still foreign to me to this day.
Yeah, the whole lack of identity, and then like with people with ASPD or people who might be watching and might not know what we're referring to. ASPD is kind of like the best way to describe it is like sociopathy, sort of, or
Yeah.
psychopathy, whichever one. Factor two psychopathy,
Yeah.
I guess. But
Yeah, like because it's technically sociopathy, but I guarantee most people watching this video won't have a, and this isn't to come at anybody, but
yeah,
they
yeah,
probably
yeah,
won't have a good idea of what that actually means.
yeah. So
Because
when you
most
say
people think of like
ASPD,
Ted Bundy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We say, eventually I would like to interview a sociopath as well, and hopefully I have someone that I was supposed to, but they like their YouTube their Facebook got like eliminated. I don't know what happened.
I have a
But,
connection for you if you remind me.
okay, yeah, I would love to. But the lack of identity is also there with them as well because they have
Yeah.
this chameleon like aspect to them where they. And I hear it's somewhat similar to MPD as well, but MPD is more like they pick up traits of other people as they go along throughout their life and like attach it to
Yeah.
themselves. But with ASPD, it's like they can kind of just switch in the moment.
Yeah.
it's like they get to be totally different, and to me that is the most wild concept.
They
I guess
don't have
you
any
say because I feel
attachment to.
genuine or whatever, but I
Yeah.
can't even imagine totally. And I've seen it. I've talked to this one person that I was supposed to interview. This girl, she's from like Norway or whatever, and she types perfect English. You know, but and I had a voice note of hers, a couple voice notes. Her accent is so thick; it's hard to understand her when she speaks,
Yeah.
but types perfectly. We talked for about 2 or 3 hours on Facebook Messenger, and if you can look at it from the beginning to the end, in the beginning, she's typing her own way. And as we're
Interesting.
talking, as she's getting a better sense of
Mm,
me, a better vibe of me, you can see her you can see the sentence structures, the way she phrases her words,
yeah.
the words she's using change. And it's
Interesting.
by the end of the conversation, you would think you're talking to someone from Mount Vernon, New York.
Because that's the thing, is that she that, because that's very relatable for me, because I do that to but not to as much of an extent, because I actually have, I feel
But
like
it's
people with,
noticeable for me. Someone who might have been talking to her might not have noticed it. You know. So
yeah,
continue.
but yeah, like, because for me it's like I do a very similar thing and it's almost unconscious when I do it, but the issue become, but I think the difference with that and sociopathy is I have an attachment to my identity. I don't think sociopaths do. I don't think they really, like, they know who they are more or less, but they don't have any sort of I guess respect for who they are actually, and so they're willing to kind of mirror like that in order to, so people like them more and stuff, may not like them more, but just so that they get along and everything.
Yeah, from my understanding, they don't even care if people like them or not. They
No, they
just,
do not.
that's a huge difference between NPD and ASP or
Mhm.
sociopathy, whatever, narcissists and sociopaths, whatever, is is they don't have that need for admiration. They're very power driven. They're very goal orientated.
Envy.
Yeah.
Like,
But
what I would do to get rid of my need for admiration.
yeah, that's the one thing you said, that anyone who has NPD and they go through treatment or whatever, that's the one symptom criteria that doesn't really
Yep.
go away.
Sticks around. Yeah, unfortunately. Ugh. Oh well.
Is that because and then that's because you need external validation to fulfill your sense of self, right?
Yeah.
That's
Unfortunately, treatments just makes us stop fucking up our lives by changing the behaviors. The internal shit doesn't change.
how would you, if you could, for your own life, how would you try not to fix, I don't know what the word is, to fix it, or, and if you had advice for anyone else on NPD, like, is there anything you can do, because that seems like such a burden to be able to, I mean, like I said, I was saying this before, I think we recorded, but for me, I never get told anything nice about myself. I never have anyone randomly come up to me and be like, "Hey, Dave, I noticed you're really nice at this or this." Like how you just said, how, "Oh, Dave, I noticed this about you." I never get anything like that. And but
Really.
and at the very very bottom, it does bother me. But it doesn't bother me to the point where I need to construct conversations and friendships just for that
Yeah.
to happen, though.
Really.
So it does
So
bother me to a point where I'm like, damn, nobody notices anything good about me, or notices any type of, I must be like a real loser. I must be a real whatever. But it doesn't bother me to the extent where I need to, you
yeah,
know,
like usually you're not thinking about it probably.
yeah, yeah. For the most part, I'm not thinking about it. It's not a huge thing. Every once in a while, it'll pop in my head, and I'm like, damn, like nobody, like I just started doing this YouTube thing, and like I told
Yeah.
you, I got coworkers that come up to me, and they'll be like, oh, I like how you, or even just friends, I like how you get people to open up, or you get people to, it seems like they trust you, or I like the way you dive into the conversations, and that's dope. I get self esteem juice from that,
Yeah.
but it's not something that I intentionally ever seek out. So
That's see, and that's, see, me meeting it is as foreign to me as you not meeting it is, fuck. Like, me
yeah,
meeting
yeah,
it
yeah,
is as
yeah, yeah.
foreign to
The
you as the other way
contrast,
around. Yeah.
the
Like,
contrast are different.
I don't know how somebody can feel good about themselves if they aren't being told that they're like have positive traits, so to speak. I don't, like, my best advice for other narcissists would literally just to be like, seek out, like, how do I put it? Um, like, try to get it from healthy sources, things that, like, you can actually take pride in, things that help other people. that's the only advice I've ever really been able to come up with it, because it's just I've never not needed that.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I'm alone for too long, I'll freak out because I'm not getting that. And I'll need to like text people and ask for like, hey, please validate me. Please tell me I'm a real person and that I'm attractive, that I'm smart. I don't know that I'm those things until somebody is telling me that I am those things. Somebody compares me to a movie character, I'm gonna be looking them up for the rest of the day. I will be like reading every fucking thing about them, looking up clips just to see how I am like them, asking for reasons. Tell me why I'm like that person, because I need that validation so bad. I need that definition.
Where do you think that stems from? You know, like from not getting it enough as growing up, or do you think that was just always wired into your brain ever since like you were joking around since you were 2? You know, like you think it was just always
2-year-old
there?
narcissist.
Or could you pick out a point where it's like, yo, like I remember this time, and ever since then I just needed it? Like,
oh, that's a good question, because I've always been insecure. I feel like it didn't really start coming. I don't think I knew. I remember the moment that I realized I needed it. I remember I was like in high school, and I was at this lunch table, and the entire time I was making everybody laugh, and I felt like, I remember walking away from that table, I was feeling high, like legitimately, I felt high, and I'm like walking away on top of the fucking world, and that's when I realized that's the only thing that makes me feel good. And I don't know how much I needed it before then, because I didn't realize that I did.
Yeah.
But it's been at least since I was 14 or so. I do think it comes from, I think it comes from two areas. One, not liking myself and needing to be told. And two, I need somebody to validate the construct of me, since I feel like everything about me is almost crafted. Like I am only a performance. I need people to validate that that's real. Tell me that I am real. This personality that I made up for myself because I'm nobody otherwise. I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, I would have probably totally forgot about the whole false self and true self aspect.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about when you watch my stuff, just because I don't really touch on it that often,
Oh, no,
other than saying I feel fake.
I would have totally forgot to even bring it up in the interview if you didn't even say anything about it just now.
Yeah.
Wearing them. So okay, all right. So I like to get into. So we're trying to destigmatize it here now.
Yes.
There's a lot of channels out there that I don't like. Not people who have NPD. The people who have had an ex-lover or an ex-partner who had BPD or NPD or whatever, and then now they have a YouTube channel, and you see these titles, you know, how to destroy the narcissist, how to
get revenge on a narcissist.
I don't like those, because listen, when I was going through a lot with with the person I really cared about, there was a time where I was really low, and I was trying my best to figure out what's going on here, and I was researching all these videos, and I would stumble upon them, and you know, this is after I figured out about vulnerable narcissism, and now I'm kind of looking at this person a certain way, because I'm like, you know, you got this or you got this, because BPD at the point was not stigmatized in my brain, never even heard of it.
Yeah,
I like it was a little bit. Then now I'm like, oh, I'm with a narcissist right now. Okay. And then I now all these channels out here. This is why I wanted to do something different, because I don't like how I get it. There's a lot of hurt people out there that have gone through a lot,
and they're valid in that.
And they're they're validated, because I mean, let's be honest. And there's lots of people, and like narcissism, it might be on a spectrum, it might not be, it might be more on a scale, a parallel scale, like you said. But so there's people who might have some traits, not, you know, subclinical, they just might be a little dickish, and there's people who are just out there who might really be malignant and trying to harm people, and I get it. So lots of people they've been hurt, when I watch these videos and I see them, I can see the hurt in them. I can see the victim mentality or whatever in them.
Yeah, the resentment, especially. Yeah.
But I don't like how these channels and it's clickbait. It's literal clickbait. The title, down from the title to the, and maybe because I'm
guilty of that too, in fairness.
No, yeah, I've seen it on yours too. And everyone's. But I don't. But at least it's coming from someone who has it. It's like, you know, it's like a black person saying the N-word. You know, they can say it, but other people can't. It's similar. It's in a way. I don't like then because when I was down on my lowest, I would watch these channels and I would feed into it so much
Yep.
until I got a better understanding of what a narcissism actually is, and then I was able to humanize it myself and look at it
Yeah.
from a different angle myself.
And I feel like, and that's the issue, is that I feel like I get it. There needs to be that portion where they need to be angry. They need to feel not so alone. And I support that 100%. But the revenge mentality, I hate that, because that does not, that perpetuates hurt for everybody. There's no
And at that point, and I want to say this to anybody, abuse is abuse. So once you're being abused, once your boundaries are being broken or messed with, you shouldn't be in that situation regardless. And I don't care how codependent you are. I was one of the most codependent people. I was stuck and I couldn't. And I love this person. I love this person. I care for this person. I care for this person. But you also have to take some type of accountability that you recognize that this wasn't healthy. And even though you hoped and wished that person would change for you, there's a certain time and point, whether it takes a couple months, a year, 2 years, however minute long, you gotta take accountability. Like this, you spent this time with this person, and I don't want to sound like a dick. I don't want to.
No, but I mean, you don't. You're like this comes from a place of passion where like you are not healing if you are feeding into it like this.
Yeah,
you can't feed into hate.
You're living with this person, or you have a kid with this person, and now you're watching YouTube videos on how to get revenge and how to hurt them and do all this. It's like, why even waste your emotional energy and your time into doing that? And then you want to play to spin it around. You want to say, oh, but I'm not a narcissist. I'm better. I'm just righteous. I'm just righteous in my revenge tactics. It's like I don't like all that. That's why. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say, every person with NPD is such a great person and that they don't deserve certain things. I mean, listen, if someone is out there lying behind your back, stealing from you, gaslighting you, doing a bunch of stuff, then at the very least, or the very most, just leave that person alone. Just go no contact. Do whatever you got to do. Stop talking to the person, but you're only hurting yourself by entertaining those videos that are telling you to get revenge, and it pushes, because then it's more emotional turmoil. That's just how I feel, because those videos, they messed me up at a certain point in time in my life, and I don't like those videos. I don't like them. I like just being real. That's why I try to go through the symptom criteria. I like going through the facts of things. I like presenting facts so people can make decisions on their own.
And I think that's how it's what's the word? That's how it's I think it's designed. I don't know if it's perfectly designed, but they know it gets clicks, is perpetuating that, because people still have the need to keep going back to that content, because they just want to feed that hate. And especially when somebody's validating that hate, making it more intense, they feel the need to get it out. They go to more videos like that. And it's like you can't move on. And like, it's something with my content that I actually kind of worry about sometimes, is I always say, like, once you get your closure, I don't think that you should obsess over my video. I don't think you should watch every one of my videos. I think that you should move on and kind of forget about narcissism to some degree, unless you're like invested in me and my story. And at this, but I'm also like, no, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me.
It's like, I don't want to say that too loud. I mean, keep watching.
Like I always said, I said in one of my videos, I was like, all right, I encourage you to leave, but recommend my channel to 2 other people. Give me 2 other subscribers before you do.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I like that tactic. All right. So how do you we kind of sort of talk about, how do you view the world and people? Do you view it as a scary? Obviously, you think people backstab each other all the time. So there's a view of you distrust people to a huge extent, or to a certain extent, you distrust people. 100%. But how do you view the world and how do you view people?
Good question. That's a really good question. Because, well, first, I view before I was aware, I thought everybody was just like me, right? I knew something was wrong. I had no idea, but why would I assume that everybody else had completely different motivations and thought completely different than me? And you can kind of see why that would. I'm very Machiavellian, and you can kind of see how that would lead to a lot of mistrust. Is that, like, I feel like everybody's in it for their own gain. Everyone just wants attention and admiration, and they're willing to do anything to get it. Like I am completely willing to admit, I am willing, or at least I was willing, to do anything and get it. I didn't want to hurt people. Like, I didn't get any pleasure out of hurting people, but I was willing to go to those lengths. And so I expected that other people would be doing the same. And so I thought the world was very cutthroat, very People were very selfish. You can't trust people. I also thought that they were stupid because I thought that they had my same motivations. They're just worse at it, which is hilarious looking back on it.
Yeah.
But and nowadays it's weird because I have to constantly fight against those assumptions, constantly fight against this my nature, which is assuming everybody is out for their own gain.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I do see society as naive. I think that people have too, maybe not positive, but too, I guess positive. I guess like they're too optimistic about how society operates. I talk to some of my narc friends about this occasionally, where it does feel like we have a more accurate view of the world because we feel like we know that the world is cutthroat, and everybody else is trying to ignore it and trying to pretend that some happy, what's the term, kumbaya stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And we view it as not like that. And honestly, I think that's something that could be debated. Are we right or are we wrong? I hope society proves us wrong at some point, but
Yeah.
I don't know. As of right now, it's hard for me to justify that it's not.
Yeah. No, I see that. I don't. I view the world as. I mean, I've gone through a lot, man. I've been robbed at gunpoint. I've been jumped. I've had a lot of
Yeah,
things happen to me. So I don't view the world as a safe place. But
yeah,
I don't objectively look at it that way. I don't think that's the only point. I don't think that's the only thing. There's people
gotcha.
out there that are
You
going
view it
through
gray.
shit. I view it very gray. I do think that there is genuine people out there. There are people who have good intentions.
Yeah.
But it's not everybody. And and it just come as you are, and I'll make my decision. Then over time. But
That's honestly, that's probably the right answer right there. That's probably like
yeah.
the closest to the truth that everyone's going to get to.
Yeah, I mean, the world is an extremely scary place. And I can't imagine. The thing is, I wasn't raised with a bunch of traumatic experiences like that. My mom loved me to death, was very caring, um, almost to a fault. And she kind of kept me, she warned, since I was little, she would always warn me, there's people out there that'll kidnap you. There's people
Yeah.
that'll take advantage of you. If a guy if we're in the store and I lose sight of you for a second and some guy picks you up, make sure you scream. These are one of my first memories. Make sure you scream, "This isn't my dad. This isn't my dad." Something. I gotta, start screaming, kicking, and doing
Yeah.
all that. So I was taught from a very, very young age the world is not a safe place. But I didn't really go through much as a child, at least, to make me
Yeah.
view the world as an unsafe place. And like I've just, from what I've heard, a lot of people who have cluster B personality disorders, they view the world as very
Yeah.
unsafe. Whether that means they can't trust people or they view it as an actual scary, violent place, whatever the case may be, during their own situations growing up, they just have a certain view in the world, and it's sad.
Somebody I mention on my channel every now and then, Hinzog. He's a cluster A. He has schizotypal, and he's super. If you're interested, I'll send him to you because he's fascinating.
I would love to
But
interview someone with a cluster A personality disorder because they're so
oh,
hard to. It'd
100%.
be so hard to even get them to be like, to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, to be open about it. That's what shocks
yeah,
me is that like he tells people because they're always so isolated and paranoid.
yeah,
But for me, like, and he described it, and I think he described this almost perfectly. He said it feels like people with cluster B personality disorders get into interpersonal relationships, romantic or platonic, with the expectation of being hurt, with that they're going to be betrayed as soon as they get into that, and that he doesn't think that's a good way to enter a relationship. And I agree. It's just like so subconscious. It's not even subconscious. It's just so automatic. It's like you can't just automatically trust. You can't automatically think that this person is going to treat me well. You have to go into it thinking there's a good chance this guy will stab me in the back, and I have to be prepared to fight back if that does happen. Which I agree. It's not a pleasant way to go about the world, but it's what feels the safest,
yeah.
at least for us.
Okay. Yeah. So now, all right. So now, this will be a special question for you because you're a YouTuber, so it's a little bit different. This is something that you're probably thinking of all the time. But even if you could take the YouTube aspect away from it, how do you think people view you? When even maybe growing up, how do you think You think people viewed you, well, that's the thing. You probably think people viewed you as either all good or all bad, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, I would flip between like everyone thinks I'm the most charismatic, smartest person in the world, and then thinking everybody hated me.
Mm.
I'd flip back and forth all the time. I'm not all the time. When I was younger, my grandiosity was more intact. I just break down every now and then. But it's hard for me to really think, like, I need people to tell me what they think of me, like, all the time. Nowadays, nowadays I have no idea. That's a good question, because how do I think people view me?
Because that's something you
I
obviously care about a lot, you know?
Yeah, like, I'm trying to think like what my girlfriend would thinks of me. I think she idealizes me a little bit, but I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how people. Maybe that's part of why I need that constant affirmation, because like I don't have that object constancy, so I'm forgetting what people think about me almost immediately, and I can't view myself in a full picture. I'm pretty 2D.
Yeah.
I imagine they probably think I'm narcissistic nowadays, because I make jokes about grandiosity and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't.
Well,
Would you be able to answer that easier? Like, think it like for
well,
yourself?
I could tell you how I view you from the outside
Well,
looking in. From the
well,
outside.
I meant like other people, how they view you. But I would
Oh,
also love to
okay.
hear what you think of me.
No, you know what? Yeah, first I'll tell you how I view you, and then I'll tell you how I think you view
Okay.
me. I think that you're someone who went through a lot growing up. Whatever your definition of a lot is, everyone has their own
Yeah.
temperaments or their own tolerance to certain things. So whatever, I think you, for your own perspective, you're someone who went through a lot growing up, and it affected you in a certain way, to where you had to create certain coping mechanisms to defend yourself against the outside world that probably was just looked at as either cruel or just,
Uncaring,
untrustworthy.
maybe. Yeah.
Untrustworthy. And and then you reach a point where whatever you got diagnosed, and this is just me from the outside looking in. I've watched your videos, and then you got diagnosed. And this is the good thing about you, is the same way how I cared about somebody enough to do all this research and find out all about this stuff, and that has really nothing to do with me personally. I mean,
Yeah.
it helped me out a lot in my way of viewing the world. But I think you went through a certain amount of research to figure out about yourself, and I think that is highly commendable, bro. I really think I do, because anyone that can watch your stuff knows. Anyone that's done enough research to the point that I have, or anyone who might even be like what's his name, Healing NPD, the guy, the one of the experts you talk to. What's his name? Healing NPD
Heal
or
MPD. Yeah.
Healing NPD?
Heal MPD.
I'm subscribed to him too.
He's great. I love him.
Yeah, yeah. I like him too. Um, Even with someone like that, if when I'm watching your content, like when I first started watching your content, I already had a decent amount of knowledge, and then it was nice. It was refreshing watching your stuff, because just about, like I've said this before, just how open you are, and you're
Yeah.
not, you don't really, even though I think your latest video, I just watched it, and you were like, you were having some emotional dysregulation, and you were thinking, I'm not going to post this, and
Yeah.
and you
And every
did.
time I realize I have to. Yeah. I'm
Yeah, you
like,
did, and
yeah.
I think that doing this, even though it might be a way of seeking admiration or whatever, I think overall it's good for you, because you
Yeah.
learn more about yourself, and you're also helping other people. You're helping people like me. You're helping people that probably have NPD. Whether those narcissists are watching you thinking that they're a better narcissist than you are, at least they're still watching, right? So
Yeah.
there's something there. But
That's actually a good thing to touch on, is that, like, a lot of times I do get accused, you're doing this for attention, and yeah, that's one of my motivations, one of them. But that's black and white thinking, isn't it? Like, thinking that
yeah,
I'm only doing this for attention. I do, but like, also, like, being able. I always talk about Shan's story. She left a comment on my like, I was fucking blown away. She left a comment, and this was like one of the first comments that really got to me and made me feel things I was not familiar with. Was how she would read, like, her mom was a narcissist, and she would read all these articles online saying, "Go no contact, they're evil manipulators, etc., etc." And so she went no contact, and her mom died while they were no contact. And so this sent her into like this search of understanding her mom. And she came across my stuff and she made this very heartfelt comment saying how thankful she was that I was able to explain her mother and how it wasn't like her being an evil manipulator. It was this desperate need to regulate self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's a lot, first of all. Like, and it sticks with me. That was towards like the way beginning of my channel, because I was just like, shit, that made me feel something. This channel allows me to explore those feelings and make me actually want to help people. And also like other narcissists being like, I felt so alone until I found your content. It made me feel actually understood. And I'm like, shit, what are these feelings? I don't want to deal with them.
It's like when the Grinch stole Christmas, and at the end of the movie, he probably just starts going like this.
Yeah, that's what it feels like sometimes. I'm like, God, wait, I'm not. Is there something in there? I'm not completely empty.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was another thing I wanted to talk about. Wait, hold on. And how people view me. My ADHD. You know, I don't know how people view me. And it's another thing, because people don't just go out their way to tell me certain things about myself. I don't know. But it's not that I don't care. It's not that I don't care. I do think about it.
One does a little bit, yeah.
And it's funny to me because you're more open. When I'm just starting this YouTube channel, but I am a pretty open person. I'm almost an open book. But it's hard to be an open book in front of a bunch of strangers, you know, like you and me are just talking, but who knows? 110 people might watch this, 100 people, 100,000. Who knows how many people might watch this? And there's a lot of people that I don't know that are just watching me, perceiving me. And you know, so I have thought about it, but you're definitely more open than not that I can be, but I'm trying to be. And that's what I like. That's how I like.
You're comfortable right now.
Yeah, I'm getting comfortable with being on YouTube and doing all of this, you know, but I am very aware of, like, sometimes you know, I like to drink. Sometimes I'll get too drunk and then I'll just be posting dumb stuff on my Instagram story. And then, you know, and then the next day I'm super self-conscious about what I just did. And I was like, oh man, I look so dumb in this video. Delete.
That's funny. That is relatable for me. Goddamn, I drink too much. Fucking. Oh, by the way, dude, I don't mean to cut this short or anything, but it is getting to about. I do have to leave here in like a couple minutes.
All right, sure, bro.
If you have any last questions that you really want to touch on, now's the time.
Yeah, no. I think that's basically pretty much it, man. I mean, I would love to do another one of these with you in a month or so, or whatever, whenever you get some free time.
I'm perfectly like, I'll come on again. Thank you for having me, by the way.
And
again,
I appreciate
a couple hundred of us.
Yeah,
of course. I do my best. I told you I was going to do it. I know that I get.
Yeah. It took a while, but you know, both of our schedules. I work 60 hours a week, but we made it happen, and I'm really glad we did this, bro. I hope this can help. Me
too. And I really hope your channel like sees a lot of success, because I think how you're going about this is really cool. And how, again, I think you're the perfect person to be doing this, just because of how you. From what I can observe about you, you are probably the best person to be doing this, especially the surprising amount of compassion you have for people with these ailments and disorders and stuff like that.
And they're just humans, man. And I want other people to watch these videos and be able to know that they're not alone. That's the whole point.
Oh yeah.
Hear other people's story. But yeah, so all right, so I'll let you go, bro. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Of course. I hope you have a good one, man.
You too,
I'll catch
bro.
you around.
See you.